In the previous video, we didn't take the font size tokens to GeneXus. We're going to do it only with the desktop tokens. This means that we will not add the breakpoint option to the set of tokens as we had seen a couple videos ago. Do you remember? Please bear with me a little bit and you'll understand why. If we don't really know the syntax to add tokens for font sizes, it's convenient to add the first one from the graphical editor, in this way. And there we can give it the name we want, and the value. Then, from the final result of the analysis that we had made in the previous video, and that was expressed in this spreadsheet, we can enter these tokens. As I said, I'll only use the values for desktop in this DSO. Here I copied them all, placing regions, as before, for organization purposes. We can see in the graphical editor that the information is represented like this. Next, we should take the opportunity to change, in the classes we've already defined, all the font size properties so that they now use the appropriate font size token. In this way, if we look in our spreadsheet, in the tab where we had the text classes, the token for H2, it was named L. So here we type the $ to refer to a token of type font sizes and name L. Then we look for the token for the paragraph class. It's the one named S. So we replace it with font sizes S. And all that's left is the button class, which will be XS. Remember that we only have these three classes because, for learning purposes, we had already been working on them in the previous module in great detail, so that you could get a feel of all this and understand what it's all about. But when we already know all that, and we have to start working on a project, in general, we do what we've been doing in this module. Enter the assets first, that is, the resources, images, fonts, and in this case, also include them in the DSO with the font face rules. Everything we've been doing at the beginning of this module. Set up the color system, font size system, and also spacing, radii, borders. We won't do that here, so as not to make it boring, because it's the same type of analysis that we've already done for colors and font sizes. We would add then also those tokens to use them in the corresponding properties. And after all that, we would enter all these text classes that we've already identified. Not only the three that we've already entered, but all of them, so that when we start working on the objects individually, we don't have to dwell on more obvious things, like these. And we can focus on the actual problem. We'll do that in the next video. Now, to finish this video, I just want to mention, so that it's not a mystery, why I didn't add a breakpoint option to vary the tokens by screen size. This one that I'm going to use is a possible option among several. It's not the only one. I will think of the different screen sizes as different versions of the same concept, the design system for the application. Do you remember that in a class very early on, where we'd analyzed all the players, we had separated things like this? Here are all the objects that we're going to implement the user interface. And here is the design system object. Well, it turns out that all these objects with a layout will be able to define different versions of the layout according to the platform. Take the home panel, for example. At the moment, it only has one layout defined, which is valid for all platforms in all orientations. We could add other specific layouts to it. For example, to differentiate by platform, web, Android, or Apple. I choose web, and I can also specify if it's web for any type of device or for phone or tablet. Or, for example, I can add a new layout that's valid for any platform, native or web, but for phone or tablet size. And here choose if it'll be phone or tablet, 7 or 10 inches, and so on. For example, if I choose phone and I want to initialize the layout with this one, which is the only one we have so far, I click here. And there we see that now we have two layouts. This one is a specialization of this other one. And then I can handle this one separately from the other one. For example, if I then run this panel in my Angular web application on a phone, it'll use this layout because from the two that exist, it's the one that's closest to the device and execution platform. When running the application on that same phone, but this time the native application, Android or Apple, it'll also use this layout. On the other hand, if I run the application on any other device and platform, it'll use this other one, which is the most general. So, if I run the Angular web application for desktop size, this will be the layout. In fact, for phone size, we'll have to redesign almost the entire layout because its structure will be quite different. We'll come back to this topic of layouts at the end of the course, but I don't want to focus on that now. I do want to focus on the styles of the elements. For example, both layouts will share this text, which corresponds to the same typography style, which is H2. But what about the font size property of that class? We can set it to correspond to the token FontSizes.L. Yes, perfect. But it shouldn't have the same size for the desktop application as for the one running on the phone. In one case, it should be 67 pixels, and in the other, it should be 20 pixels. One way to achieve this is to also think about DSO versions. For example, leave the DSO for desktop with the name Travel Agency and save that one as Travel Agency Tablet. And another one with the name Travel Agency Phone. And to each one, change the values of the tokens that vary by screen size. In this case, we would assign them the values of this column. Note that I don't specify the ones that are not used for this size. And in this other case, I place the values of the phone column of the spreadsheet. Where do I indicate which DSO to use in each case? In the platforms. If for phone and tablet sizes I will not distinguish between web and native applications, then I can specify it at the any level, for any platform. I specify a style, that of the travel agency DSO, while for any phone, I set travel agency phone. And for any tablet of 7, the travel agency tablet, and the same for the one of 10. Having done this at the any level then impacts the specific platforms. Note that now the value for any Android will be the same as that of any platform. And for Android phone, that of any phone. We won't be surprised to see for Android Tablet 7 and Android Tablet 10, the DSO that we specified for any Tablet 7 and 10. Let's see any Apple. iPad? Well, let's move on to the web. Why isn't it being applied here? Why is travel agency always there? I don't know if you remember, we had changed the default value, the one inherited from any platform at the beginning of the course. That default value, the one inherited from any platform, corresponded to Unanimo. And we had changed to our travel agency, and that's why it's in bold. And what happens from there is that all these other ones inherit the value of that one. So here we would have to change for this one, and here for this other one. With this configuration, if we think about what will happen when we run our home panel on a phone, the layout that will be chosen of the two that exist will be this one. It doesn't matter if the application is the native one or the web one. In either case, as there are no more specific options, this will be the layout. And the DSO that it will use? If the application is a web application, it'll be this one. If the application is for Android, this one, that is to say, the same one. So what style will this text have? The one specified by the H2 class of the corresponding DSO, this one. Then the font size of that text will be the one indicated by this token, which in this DSO is worth 20 pixels. On the other hand, if we were running the web application in the browser of a laptop, this will be the selected layout, whose style will correspond to the one of this DSO. This text will then be styled according to this class, which in this DSO has this definition, identical for the moment to the other one. The only thing that varies is the value of this token, which here will be 67 pixels. You may be thinking that if so many things are identical between the three DSOs and only a few vary, wouldn't it be better to reuse what's identical and specialize only in what's different? The answer to that is always yes. Since thinking about all the variations at the same time is a bit overwhelming, in general, we work on one of the versions, which in this case is the desktop, and only after we finish we work with the others. With the current state of things, I would think that the default will be our travel agency DSO, which is the one we have been working on and which contains all the definitions. And then in the tablet and phone DSO, I would import everything from the default DSO and then specialize what's different. That is, I would do this. Remove from here all the tokens that are already identical in travel agency, delete all the identical definitions in the Styles tab, but import everything from the DSO that's in the travel agency module, Design Systems submodule, and is called Travel Agency. Both the tokens and styles tabs. I'm importing all this from Travel Agency. Everything's imported, and these tokens are overwritten. And we would do the same for the other DSO. You may wonder why I got into this if I said that we start with one of the variations, and only later we develop the other. While this is true in general, previewing how we're going to implement these variations allows us to make early decisions that will make the system easier to maintain later on. In the next videos, we'll focus on desktop web development, and we'll come back to all this at the end when we deal with the other versions. In fact, I don't think this is exactly the organization I'll end up choosing. But instead, I'm going to place the design system for each variation in a different module. That way I'll be able to call them the same. The modules allow just that there are objects among them with the same name. And each module, conceptually, will implement the same, the travel agency design system, but each one for a different universe. One for desktop, one for phone, one for tablet. Of course, one will be the model of the others. That is, they'll not be completely independent. But we're not going to think about that now. I'll simply leave an outline to analyze and solve it later when we deal with these other variations. We'll continue in the next video.